All right, we're having a Coke with one of our good friends, Taylor Hicks. It's always good to see you, buddy.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
I feel like a friend of the show.
You are a friend of the show,
Over the
always.
years, that's a thing. That's truly a saying in the business. Whether it's this show, whether it's any show. Like if you come on, you know the people there and they know you. Friend of the show, that little slogan means a lot in the business.
It does.
I don't know if I told you this. So in our studio in the mornings, we used to have Good Morning Football on. I know I reached out to you about this. But the former host, Kay Adams, say hey, Kay Adams. Yeah.
I got to hear the rest of that.
Oh my God. So
LT's a big fan, Taylor.
No, the next thing I know, and look, and there's ebbs and flows in your business. You know that. You've got ups and you've got some downs.
Trust me.
You're on that way back up with your new stuff that you're doing right now. But for whatever reason, she had you on the show. And I see Taylor and her going back and forth, very flirtatious, and I'm like, what gives? Like, that is like my number one right now. Ariana Grande or Kay Adams?
The first thing that I thought about when I was, when Kay Adams decided to have me on was, this would make Lance extremely jealous. So I figured, I would do the show on the pretense that I would see what kind of meteoric reaction that I could get.
You got it immediately. But the thing was, it wasn't like she...
Listen, this text was fired in as soon as after that interview aired. I mean, it was LT was on the case.
But I don't think she dates anybody right now, and it wasn't like she was just interviewing you. There seemed to be a little chemistry and a little flirtation.
LT noticed something.
I did.
A little fire burning.
Well, fortunately, there's a few instances in the business that I've had where you're working so much and then all of a sudden this beautiful, hot, inquisitive, journalist.
Specimen,
natural beauty, starts asking you questions and you just turn into butter.
Yeah.
Kay's one of those.
How did that even get hooked up? I won't get on a big Kay Adams thing. I'll let it go after this.
So what's coming is, do we have Kay's number by any chance?
Yeah, by chance.
So,
we'd love to have her on the show.
So and
DM never worked, by the way.
Listen. So I'll tell you how it all went down. One of my favorite shows on television in the morning is Good Morning Football on the NFL.
They do a great job with it.
I think, and it's very you can tell that they cherry pick talent off of that show. Obviously, Dhani Jones with the CB was it Dhani with the CB?
No.
It's not Dhani.
Nate Burleson.
Nate Burleson.
Yeah.
So they plucked Nate Burleson off of that show. So there's a pipeline of really great on-air talent that goes from that show. It's to bigger and not bigger, but to bigger things. And I'm just a huge fan. So I'm always watching Good Morning Football, and so I start tweeting Peter Schrager. And so Schrager and I start going back and forth. Schrager was like, when I was a kid, I was like, dude, I get it. I don't start when I was a kid. Just say you like my music. Look, dude, you're 10 years younger than me. You might have been 15 in high school.
Yeah, but I do remember a former girlfriend saying when I was in 8th grade that you dated, I used to listen to your song all the time. That's got to make you feel good, right?
Yeah,
mixed emotions.
Yeah, do I make you proud? In every sense of the word. Sometimes. But no, it's huge fan. The producer, obviously, some of the producers of Good Morning Football went over to FanDuel with Kay Adams, and they said we'd love to have you on and do a bit about all the Taylors in football and after. So that's how we got here. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Who is the greatest Taylor in football? Lawrence Taylor, right?
Lawrence Taylor,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think so.
Yeah.
Lawrence,
I mean, who else would be in the
I'm
mix?
trying to even think of it.
I think Lawrence, Kenny Stabler's for a great example. So and later in Kenny's life, I would sit with Kenny at the Floribama, and Kenny and I would, we would have a ball. And Kenny looked at me and said, "You know what Coach Bryant would tell you, Taylor? He's like, you ain't got no going home sense." And that's the first time that
Amen.
somebody had ever told me that I don't have any going on.
I don't either.
You don't have any either. But, you know, those kinds of players at that, you know, Lawrence Taylor obviously didn't have any going home season. But the fact that they could produce, you know, on the field, it's a testament to just how extremely talented they were in their profession. You know, Lawrence Taylor obviously being the ultimate. You know.
Before I forget, I just want to ask you about discipline, because when we first met you, you really didn't have going home sets.
No.
But when you did your first residency after winning American Idol, I think it was at Paris, right?
Yep.
In Vegas.
Yep.
You really didn't go out much, right? So, I mean, how do you get to that point where you're able to cut it off?
Well, right after Idol, I immediately went on tour, and my management at the time, said, "Look, we're going to capitalize off the name. You've just done 75 dates. Now you're going to do 150. You're going to work for the next 18 months." And so I ended up doing 18 months. I never really spent much time in Hollywood. There's a couple of nights, that I spent. But I mean, look, when I went in, I did a record out of Hollywood, and I hit the road. So I didn't have much time really to spend, outside of not going home, luckily. But I can tell you this, I started playing casinos when I was 28. So the first casinos that I started playing, I had a business manager at the time. I had a Regions check card, like I was 25. So I went in, and after the first couple of casinos, like Borgata, giant casino up in Connecticut. They asked me. They said, "Would you like it in cash?" And I said, "I don't know.
That's a bad idea.
I don't know." But I was like, maybe I could get some money out of my account. So I went to the machine with my Regions, checking account, my card. I had a $200 minimum.
Minimum?
So, minimum. Maximum.
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 Yeah, maximum. I was about to say now. Maximum.
So
yeah. All you can get is $200.
I started playing casinos pretty early on in my career. They became offices, so the idea of playing in a casino became more work related as I worked in casinos. So by the time, luckily, that I got to Vegas, it was more of an office job, to a certain degree. I would get in my pajamas and walk across the street to the Aria or something, and I would sit in pajamas, would play craps with some of the high rollers or something like that. But it was never, luckily for me, the idea of playing casinos, was turned into more of a job than more of a fun thing.
Yeah.
Could have gone either way. One could have I could have gone broke. The other one was, I'm just trying to get to the next gig.
Well, we are going to make an announcement here. Taylor has agreed, in principle, to perform in the lounge, correct?
Absolutely.
You're going to come up play in the Friday
We're going to
Lounge?
get Taylor in the lounge. We're going to try to get a date together.
Yeah,
He's got a new single coming out.
I do have a new single.
We're going to try
It's
to
the
work
first
that out.
single in 14 years. And I've had a couple, some movie tracks and stuff, but it entered at 47 on the country charts a couple of weeks ago. I probably need about $10 million to give it a bullet to get it to 2, but I don't have that. But I'm relying on the strength of song.
So are you saying if you had $10 million, you really could pay to promote it to get it up there?
Listen,
is that the way it is?
This is the way corporate music goes. You guys are on it. So you got a great song, and it gets entered, with some really great marketing. Thorough marketing. But
Daryl
the way
Johnston.
that
The Moose.
hey,
Come on,
Moose. You can crash my party, man. You can crash the party.
He's in
Come on,
TV. How
come
in the hell
on,
does he not know?
crash the party.
You work for
Crash
Fox.
the party.
How do you not know there's a camera?
Hey,
He's hidden. I couldn't see him. I saw you guys.
Okay, hey, did you ever go to the White House back in the day?
I did not.
Okay.
Oh,
I didn't
hang
even
on.
know it existed.
Can
Really?
we mic you up? There.
Okay, the question I asked.
so good.
Moose,
Now all the heat's off of me,
it doesn't
Moose.
surprise me, but Moose never went to the White House, the infamous White House, that the 90s Dallas Cowboys, not only winning championship after championship, You never knew it existed?
Not really, because if it did, how could it be where it was? Because everybody
true.
always say, you can see it right from where we practiced, and if it was that infamous, why aren't we shutting it down?
Who owned it?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I really, it's one of those things we hear about in the book, and you're like, all right, there was rumblings that something was going on, but really, to that level? I was like, wow.
Pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's swinging for the fences.
Well, you are subject of one of the most emotional moments I have really ever seen in sports. When Emmitt Smith is going into the Hall of Fame, and he's calling out former teammates, people that meant something in his life. The place, I'm getting chills talking about this. The place is full of Cowboys fans, and they start doing the Moose chant. And he says, Daryl Johnston, stand up. And the place goes insane.
Yeah.
He stood up, and he couldn't even talk for being so emotional. What was that like for you, though? I go back and watch that video just randomly sometimes.
Yeah, I've gotten so many people that have reached out and talked about that.
Yeah.
It's one of the more galvanizing reasons why they're a fan of the NFL, because of the relationships that we establish. And that's what we try to tell people. It's just about the brotherhood, the fraternity, about winning. And that's what those teams were about. So when he did it, I'm like, oh boy, what are we doing here? Because Troy was very gracious, and Troy was very, very good at recognizing everybody. You know, when he went into the Hall of Fame. But Emmett and I obviously have that special tie, and he had gone through, to your point, he'd gone through and already talked about people, and then he's like, stand up, and I'm like, oh boy, you're gonna have me stand up.
Camera hits you.
You're gonna have me crying.
Moose, what was the I'm curious. So what do you think was the most successful play that you and Emmett ran together?
Lead draw. It's easy. We ran it. Everybody knew we were running it. It was hard for people to stop it. Our offensive line was very good. The hard thing for me is it isolated me in space against the middle linebacker. The middle linebackers back in that era were, like, Eric Hill was the original Ray Lewis. He was 6'3", 255 pounds, never left the field. He was a third down inside linebacker that could run with people, but you had to hit him, all day long. So there was a lot of big inside linebackers back in the day. And the guard would double team with the center, push to the backside backer. We'd fan the front side of the play. So it was me and the inside linebacker, the Mike linebacker, the strong side inside linebacker, who was a big guy. And it was just one-on-one. And I've told people, there's not really a skill set that you acquire to do that. It's just really a mentality. And it really comes down to who's going to continue to do this play after play after play until you break somebody. So it was really kind of a testament of wills at that point.
What was it called? Was it you went in the
I
huddle?
right, lead draw right. I left, lead draw left.
That was the infamous play.
That was strong side draw. Howie Long always talks to me. He calls it lead Joe Carell. Is what the terminology would be in the Raider defense back in that day. For us that was kind of a little bit different. That was more on the edge. But yeah, that play was I would say, as the NFL's all-time leading rusher, I would say well over half of his yards came off a lead draw.
Wow. And the collisions were so violent back in the day. You talk about these Mike linebackers you were taking on, and CTE is a big thing now. I mean, I don't want to jinx you. You sound like, you've got everything together, but I mean, how many concussions do you think you had back in the day?
Well, I had more as a boy growing up. As a boy, falling out of a tree, falling off a bike, sledding, up in upstate New York. So, the concussion was something that happened just as a boy growing up, more so than it did with football. I put on every pad. I worked hard to strengthen my neck. I had in-season shirts and out-of-season shirts that I wore because my neck was probably about 1.5 inches larger in season. I did everything I could to be smart. I wore a big cowboy collar that went back and kept the rotation of the neck moving, kept it more stable. So you'll see a couple of those types of pieces of equipment out there right now, but there's so much more knowledge and there's so much more acceptance with what a concussion is. Back when we played, there's nothing there that shows the signs of an injury at the time. If you have a high ankle sprain, you have a high ankle sprain. Well, you can't go. I mean, look at how swollen it is. When you have a concussion, there's really nothing there. There's nothing that your teammates and everybody can see. So there was that culture of staying on the field and the bravado that went with it. And I think we've done a tremendous job in the game of football, not just at the NFL level, but at every level of breaking down that bravado.
Do you specifically remember your most violent hit the collision, and did you ever see like a crazy color with that hit?
It's not. See, that's the funny thing. A lot of times it's not the big hit because you can brace for that and you can do some things, and if you're protected. I had some really, really violent collisions at times that resulted in nothing, no concussion at all. But if I was trying to get up, I'd cut a guy and I'm trying to scramble back to my feet, and the guy goes to leap over me and puts his knee into the side of my head. And now all of a sudden you're on autopilot for 25, 30 minutes real time. So my 2 really bad concussions happened in the exact same mechanism. One in college, one in the NFL, where I was scrambling to get to my feet, and a guy was going to jump over top of me right as I stood up, and he kneed me in the side of the head. And I can go back to that point and not remember anything, not make a mistake. Nobody on the sideline knew, that I had a concussion until you come out of it. So we're still learning about the brain. We're still learning a lot about how it works. We're still understanding concussions, how it impacts individuals. Some people get them frequently. Some people don't get them at all. I mean, it's a very complex situation, and that's why I think it's been a big issue in the NFL, but there's so much we still don't know. Not even the NFL, the game of football itself.
I still get nervous in certain situations. But when you did the American Idol finale and you sang that song, and your first Super Bowl appearance, how nervous were you guys?
I knew that I had caught a break in Las Vegas after the producers let me through to Hollywood. So I just, I had a calling at an early age. I mean, in 9th grade biology, I didn't fail it, but I didn't do good in it. But I was perfecting my autograph because I thought one day that I would have to sign quickly, but also sign legibly enough to be able to get people to understand it's TH and the I. And so when I was let through in the earlier rounds of Hollywood, I knew that my break had been caught, and I had that opportunity there. From that point on, it was actually getting to wherever I needed to go to be able to come out through the break and be able to entertain people for the rest of my life. So as I did the Idol finale, my mentality was to make it to Floribama, and at that point in time, I knew that I could honestly go back to Birmingham and probably pick up a couple of sorority gigs if I wanted to.
What about for you,
Super Bowl?
You did not get led through. You earned your right. I mean, you're being very humble. You're being very humble. Whether it's judges vote, fan vote, you connect with people in certain ways. You don't get somewhere without earning that. So
Yeah.
You've earned everything.
I
that
appreciate
you've got.
that. Yeah. I spent a lot of time with the Hitherland. I still do.
Yeah. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do.
You connect with the Hitherland and what you do. It's obvious.
For us, it was, the Bills had been there. They were supposed to be a very good team. So our first time in the Super Bowl, for us, I think Jimmy Johnston did a tremendous job of keeping us in that same schedule as much as he could, because at Super Bowl, your schedule changes from Monday to game day. But he kept our routine as close to he possibly could of what we did throughout the entire season. As long as you can stay in that normal routine, as soon as it becomes bigger than what it is, and it's a Super Bowl, right? It is big. We've already got that in our minds. I've watched this as a kid growing up. I've dreamed about being in this game, and now I'm going to be in it. But the fact that they were able to keep it down where it's, no, this is just another game. It's another game. Don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Idol was very good about that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we were very structured in the way that we went through the audition. We went through Hollywood Week. We went through each song week. We were kept in isolation and in this little apartment in Hollywood. So regiment was very important to be able to keep that. So, much to his chagrin, I could see that happening as far as the Idol run too.
Yeah, no, exactly. As long as when you walk out, it's not something bigger than it really is. It's another opportunity for you to go sing. It's another opportunity for us to go play football. That's really all it is. Is there more at stake? Yeah. But if you keep that back here, and I'm just going out and singing, what I've always wanted to do, what I love to do. I'm just going out to play football. What I've always wanted to do, what I've always loved to do, and keep all that stuff back here. And if you've got people that can help you in that process, it's perfect.
All right, having a Coke with Taylor Hicks and Moose
Moose,
Johnston.
thanks for crashing the party.
Hey, really appreciate you guys listening to the Next Round 9 to 1 live every single day. Of course, you can consume us on demand. Very important that you like and subscribe, though. The entire Next Round family wants to tell you, give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe.